Me living here in the United States, I had a tree falling in my farm. The neighbor never called me. I found out when I got there, my bulls were out, running around. So it's a different culture has a heavy influence on this. And we talk about the importance of censorship. Why is that important to me? For me in Puerto Rico, it might be different, and the people here in the United States, they might have a different view of it. The authority that imposes the censorship, like I said before, if my brother tells me don't do it, it's not the same as my father tells me not to do it. And the psychological reactions that we always going to have is going to vary because of this. Okay? So how do we react? How bad do we react, or do we care? We don't care, so on. So most non-Western countries, and when I'm saying non-Western, it's not European, not the United States, but Central South America, they are Western countries, but they have the same culture characteristics that we do in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is part of the United States, but it's not the same culture. So that's why. So it's very vague when we say or where the author mentions non-Western countries, but it doesn't go into that detail. My research, I will. And we tend to live in more close communities, close families. Religion also has a huge impact on this too. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go some examples of some countries that have some sort of censorship towards information or the freedom of information. Something that our students here in the United States take totally for granted. Just being able to be pissed off because I said something, that's a privilege that many other countries don't have. For example, Burma, Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, has an internet access since the 2000, but it's heavily censored by the military. Right? And access to the internet has been heavily reduced since 2011. Why is this happening? Okay. Well, I guess informed people are a threat to the government. Okay. Cuba. Cuba had had internet since the late 90s, but again, I guess the government has to do something with it, or the government style that we have. Well, that's up in the air. Correlation does not make is not causation. So just because the countries that are more restricted happen to be socialist countries, not necessarily that's a fact, because United States, we need to find that out if we have some sort of censorship, and that would debunk that correlation. Back. Cuba. Yeah, we went on. They don't have like a mobile Wi-Fi access or mobile internet access. It's non-existent in Cuba. Only people that are with the government, they have full access to the internet. And that's another characteristic that I've found very common in most of these countries. Egypt. Everybody remember what happened in Egypt? They blamed it on Facebook access and Twitter. They claim that the revolution started because of social media. Since then, it's been blocked and it's been limited. And since 2011, they blocked Twitter and Facebook in Egypt. 62 websites have been banned also in Egypt. North Korea. Back one.
Okay.
All right. Although the internet it's available in North Korea, it's strictly limited, and permission with special authorization. Mainly, it is for the government to use. I was looking for with the population, or the percentage of the population that had internet access. Is the only country that I couldn't find it. I was using the CIA.gov. I forgot to mention that in the other slides. CIA.gov tells me what percentage of the population has access to the internet. Next. Syria. We all know the situation in Syria. 31% of the population has internet access, and the country of Syria has banned various websites for obviously political reasons. And again, we cannot attribute this to a style of government yet, because we still have to actually do the research, right? The internet was shut down in 2011. A lot of things were happening in 2011, very turbulent times. You see that most of these countries, 2011 comes up a lot. Mm-hmm. And it also been shut down in 2013 and 14. Tunisia, beautiful country, I've been there. Too bad that like a year after I went there, they had the mass shooting in the museum. Mm-hmm. I visited that museum. The internet was formally censored by the Tunisian government, and after the ousting of President Zain Bey Ali, censorship has reduced significantly. And most of these been removed, but it's still censored somehow. They have 50% of their population has internet access. Turkmenistan, beautiful people. I trained with them in the military, but only 18% of their population has internet access. That's okay, but we don't know why they do not have it. Some people just don't want to have it. The press and communication system of Turkmenistan is a state control. Again, government style. We could say that it could be a heavy influencer in why people do not have access to the internet or do not access the internet. And the telecommunication market remains very small, although that the country began accessing the internet in 1997. 1997 is another key date. That's on the 90s, the late 90s is when the internet starts coming out. A lot of these countries are seeing the access to information or access to knowledge as a threat to their own power, and that's one of the things that we see in common. Uzbekistan, a little bit better, 46% of the population has internet access, and they started having the internet by the late 90s, like most of us did, but the growth has been very, very slow and is heavily restricted. That's another problem with Uzbekistan. Same thing happens with Vietnam. So far, the countries we'll be seeing are countries that are aligned with kind of like a socialist or communist countries or state-run governments. Vietnamese internet accessibility is blocked by the government, especially in sites critical to the government. Information about overseas political opposition or opinions, even though opinions, they're not tolerated. Next. Ooh. The latest thing in China, what happened? Let me see if I quiz you guys. What's the latest thing that happened? Last night, China blocked the NBA. No longer the NBA games are going to be broadcast in China. Why? Because some manager of I think it was the Houston Rockets said, we support Hong Kong and the freedom of Hong Kong. In China, no NBA for you. Okay. Same thing happened with Apple.
Basketball, NBA.
Yeah.
Yes.
No basketball for you, no more. Apple, another one. Apple was this hours ago. They blocked the VPN apps because they claim the Chinese government claimed that they were using the VPN access. VPN connection is, everything's encrypted, so the government can read it. So if I make a point-to-point connection with Dr. Lungi through VPN, nobody can decipher it. So the government blocked it. So now you cannot download VPN apps on your iPhones. Okay? Even though that China accounts for the higher number of internet users, it's 50% of their population, when they have around 1.7 billion citizens. That's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Its censorship has skyrocketed since 2018. This is not since 2018. The figure comes from 2018. But they also have what they call the Great Firewall of China. What it is just the configuration of all the systems in conjunction with government policies that block the content. They always monitor the content. You cannot mention Tibet. You cannot mention Taiwan. You cannot mention Hong Kong. Latest thing another thing that came out that is very weird is that, you know, have you seen that movie the Tom Cruise? What was the new one that came out? With the jet fighters and all that stuff? Top Gun. The new one. He had a flag of Taiwan. They had to digitally remove it so they could show the movie in China.
Wow.
That's how deep it is getting to. And sad to say, I'm seeing a lot of these characteristics happening here. That's why I'm worried about this a little. Okay. Next. Country Iran, 44% of the population has access to the internet, and